How many people just are already familiar with our funding database known as InfoEd Spin? So, okay, just one or two. Wow. All right. Well, then I'm glad I'm here so we can talk about that tool. So in July of this year, the university transitioned from our previous vendor that had a long history with Ohio State known as COS, or Community of Science, and we started using InfoEd Spin in July. We've configured this tool. It's just simply at infoedglobal.com. And by the way, I'm going to show you a lot of stuff today, but all of it's online, and I'm going to get a list of email addresses from Terry, and I'll send it all out so that you don't have to worry about not being able to find anything. But we've configured the IP addresses so that folks can access this tool from anywhere on the Columbus campus or any regional, or Worcester and so on. Basically, if you go to infoedglobal.com, the search box will appear. It works just like any Google search engine to identify funding opportunities. I think you'll find that this tool is pretty straightforward. I'm going to use psychology, hopefully I spelled that correctly, as an example, just to kind of walk you through how this tool works and then show you some of the robust ways to sort the data. We have it configured with certain filters that the applicants are from Ohio, United States, North America, citizenship status of US. We have some search option settings so that you're only seeing funding opportunities that are currently available, but all of those can be cleared out of the system by just clicking Reset Filters. I'm just going to show you what happens. So our original sort showed 327 records, and by clearing out all the filters, now we're up to 504. One of my favorite ways to use the tool is to quickly sort by funding amount, because generally we're only interested in grants that are of a certain dollar amount, so that's a quick way. Another way to group funding opportunities, to do a sort by sponsor, and then you can grab the header and put this in a column row. And now what you're seeing are all the funding opportunities by sponsor. All of the information is exportable to Word or Excel if you want to go that route. But let's go back. We're going to delete that and bring up that big $10 million grant again, because we want people to apply for this one. That's a P50 grant if people aren't familiar. Once you select the title of a record, it opens a new window. So the original sort is in the background. So you just have to kind of get used to some of that clunky navigation. But it does have the ability that if you're interested in those $10 million grants, to find similar opportunities. So if there's a particular funding mechanism that you know you're going to apply to, or it fits nicely in your discipline, it's the one that everyone goes after, my suggestion to use the tool is to find that funding opportunity that you know is a good fit, and then run this Find Similar, and you'll get quickly isolated to those funding opportunities that match. The record is always a brief synopsis and program objectives. Try not to get dizzy as I scroll through. The other thing that this tool does is really coach you using Library of Congress keyword terms to identify other ways to maybe search for your record. So we have any other librarians in the room, or just one today? But one of the great things that our library staff do is they can walk you through some of the ontology around your discipline and perhaps expand your understanding of ways to go or directions to look for funding. And that's what this tool is really trying to do, is give you some other ways to look. These appear to be clickable, but they don't do anything. They're just buttons. Again, it's one of those navigation things that don't make a lot of sense. We always provide, the record always provides the sponsor deadlines, and sponsors can, if you're new to this kind of work, sponsors are incredibly creative with deadlines. There's not just a proposal submission deadline. There can be a letter of intent deadline. There can be a phase 1 proposal deadline, phase 2. Many times letter of intent are not always mandatory, but in some cases, as we learned this summer, if you don't submit your letter of intent, then you're not eligible to submit your proposal. So pay attention very closely to all the different deadlines. Every record has links to the Office of Research, and my colleague Abby Bell and I are here if you need to reach us. If you're not finding something that you're looking for, you're getting frustrated in the system, just reach out to us. We'll coach you through. I've done many funding consultations, either on the phone or online, and I'm also happy to come up to Mansfield anytime. So here's the description. Eligibility requirements are incredibly important. You don't want to spend time getting excited about a funding opportunity to find out that it's only early career, let's say, or that you have to be X number of years post-PhD, or all different things like that, so it's important to see. They give you a snapshot of the funding guidelines. Again, you don't want to go after some funding if the money isn't eligible to be used or allowable to be used for the types of activities that you want to pursue, so it's good to take a peek at that. And then one of the most helpful things, for every record, they give you the contact, the program officer at the funding agency that you can speak with. This is tremendously important, and many of our faculty that are savvy in research know that reaching out to the program officer and dialoguing about your project can lead to not only a better research design, but also identification of other funding opportunities. So I don't know if there's anyone in the group that has done that, that they've sort of have ongoing relationships with their program officers. Some nods, yes? Great. Do you want to comment just about the benefit of that experience? Because it takes some effort, but...
I just email, I mean, it works out very well. I mean, one of the things that's really amazing to me also is just how rapidly they get back to me. Right. So they've been very, at NSF anyway, been very responsive.
NSF is probably much better than like NIH, but yes, yeah. We always talk about having your elevator speech or your white paper about your research project ready so that you can bring that to a potential sponsor and have some dialogue. I'll give you one example of a positive outcome that recently happened. In the Digital Union on the Columbus campus, there are some folks that are supporting student and research projects related to digital media, multimedia. And they are doing a project, very simple study, looking at electronic textbooks delivered through an iPad versus hard copy textbooks, and giving those to 100 Bio 101 students. I don't know, Allison, if you know about this study. So it's a pretty simple model. They're trying to see if there's different learning outcomes. So their first place to go, sort of an obvious source, was to the Apple contract and say, is there any chance that Apple might pay for something? Of course, they said no, because they're selling like hotcakes, right? There's no reason to do that. So they reached out to some other e-book, electronic book, digital book sponsors and things. Again, sort of didn't get anywhere. We had them contact NSF, and not only did NSF make some study design tweaks and suggestions, but they enhanced other funding opportunities or areas that this team didn't know about. So now they're kind of in a position where they need to regroup and think which direction do they want to go. So there are really tremendous things that can come from reaching out. You certainly don't want to waste a program officer's time. You want to have researched a funding opportunity, see if it's the right fit, ask questions about whether or not your program is the right match, but they'll guide you and give you some direction. I've also had many investigators contact program officers thinking a program was available because it says it is, right? It's online, and only to find out that it was already decided who's going to win it, and that probably not worth the effort or time to put a team together to go after it. So sometimes program officers can be very upfront about what is going on with this particular mechanism. It's a really good activity to do that. The links will take you right to the sponsor's website, so that you can, I don't know, we have too many windows open today. You can get right to the NIH page where you can see the funding opportunity announcement. So that's kind of how that part of the system works. Let me pop back. We do have other ways to filter the data. So we looked first dollar amount. That's a great way to filter. But you can also bring up this window. And these kind of clunky arrows here, one is to expand, to kind of open up all the different countries that are available, or to collapse, so you can kind of navigate through. But like I said, we have it default settings for Ohio and North America and so on. For applicant type, depending on your level as a faculty member, you could put in junior faculty member or senior, save and exit, and basically all these other tools work that way. So what was essentially 500 records, we're now down to 80. So you can see how very robust we lost. Well, there's our $10 million one went away. But it very robustly generates all that. Once you have an account established, there's no requirement to have an account to use the tool. But if you want to be able to save your searches and be able to run them again, you'll want to create an account, and I'll show you in a second how that works. Of course, did I lose my search? No, it's catching up. Usually it brings it up.
Can I ask a question while you're
Yeah, sure.
Do you have a filter category that identifies ratio of applicants to opportunities within a given grant?
Ratio of applicants.
So say typically 80 people apply and there are only 3 spots, or typically 1,000 people apply. And there's
Yeah, this tool doesn't provide that, but you could go to the sponsor's website and see some of that. You'd have to click around a little bit, but yeah, it would be available. There is something that the College of Medicine is about to purchase that has some of that. But I can't say more about that because it's not available yet. Okay, we broke it. Just give me a second. I'll open a new window here. There's this advanced search screen, which I wasn't going to get into today because of time, but there are ways to build very robust search queries using the advanced button up here, basically using Boolean search techniques like ends and nots and excludes and all that different kind of stuff. So that's available behind this button here. But once you've signed in, your name will appear. You'll know you have an account so that you're in the system. If I just wanted to save this search, I can click on save and give it a name. And that would be saved for all time. PSYCH, we'll just go with that, under my saved searches list. So here's some searches that I've already created. And the way this side of the system works, it's a little bit different than our previous tool. The system will not alert you to any new funding opportunities based on your search, so you have to kind of jump in the system every couple weeks and check and see if anything's new. But there is another side of the system known as Genius Smarts. It's their terms, not mine. And that side of the system is where you can set up keyword funding alerts so that the system will send you an email on a daily basis for any funding opportunities that might be of interest to you. So you can run a search. This is one of the tools that we use. Another part of my role is to coordinate the limited submission process at Ohio State. So here's using the advanced search technique. I'm asking the system to tell us limited submissions, in other words, funding opportunities that are limited based on a certain date range, and I can identify all of those. We have a process that we go through and list those and distribute those out to the Associate Deans for Research for identification. So let me jump back to the main page. So that's the spin side of the tool, and I will promise to send instructions on how to use that. It's really fairly simplistic, and my contact information if you ever have questions. I'm going to jump onto the Genius side of the tool. And they're essentially two parts to the same system. And the way this works is this is where you would build your profile. We have at Ohio State, I'm sure that the regional campuses are also using Research in View with lots of enthusiasm. There's no response. So Research in View is our official tool for new faculty pre-tenure to kind of track your scholarly activities. This tool works in a similar way where you could track your things like committee memberships and so on. We do not ask that you use this. There's no reason to do it unless you want to get your information out there. But if you do create a Genius Smarts profile, you do have to come into these top 2 menu items, general and keywords, and then the next here where you're identifying things like the applicant type, the award types or sponsors that you're most interested in. But basically all that's fairly straightforward. On the keywords page is where you tell the system the type of funding that you're interested and want to be notified about. So as an example, I can put psychology in this search box and click search. What comes up in this box are all the keywords associated with psychology. I can decide which ones by holding down the control key that I want to be notified about. Once I select Save Changes, those keywords are now part of my profile, right? Because I built a profile. And they'll show up down here in the bottom of the screen, right there, along with food distribution. Here's a great example of interdisciplinary research, right? Psych and food. But those words now will prompt the system on a daily basis to send funding opportunities that match. And so the way this is meant to be, a lot of faculty will start out with a pretty broad set of keywords, and in a very short amount of time you're going to be inundated with funding opportunities, and you may want to go in the system and maybe dial it back a little bit to be more restrictive in terms of the funding announcements that you're receiving. But the system essentially sends you a link to the record, and you can pop in and review it, and you can save those individual records with your account, so you can bookmark them and they'll be there for all time. So the 2 sides of the system, Spin database for searching and the Genius alerts for being notified of funding. So pretty straightforward. I promised to forward that to you. There's one more thing I wanted to show you, and that is a wiki page that we maintain. This is essentially, if there were workshop handouts, this is what I would walk you through. All of this information is at the simple URL go.osu.edu/funding. That will redirect you to this Carmen Wiki site. Is anybody using Carmen Wiki in their courses for students? Okay. I think it's a fairly stable tool. It's been very helpful to us. There's a link to the InfoEd Global page and also to our training site where you can sign up. We offer every other month an online training webinar as well as classroom-based, sort of hands-on. There's some presentations that we've delivered, some guidance on search techniques. One of the things the University Libraries provides is access to our Foundation Center database. So this is a subscription tool through the catalog. And Foundation Center is a way to look for funding from private sources. Now the SPIN tool does both federal and private foundations. It's taking a second to load. There we go. But this would be a place to run a search if you're specifically trying to limit it just to private foundations. And it's also very robust. There are thousands of funding opportunities in this tool as well. You can narrow your search by keyword or geographic focus. You can click on a particular funding sponsor and learn a lot about these sponsors. There's a lot of intelligence in this tool. If you're familiar with private foundations, they're required by law to file a Tax 990 form. And in those forms are a lot of detail about where the money goes, who they sponsor, how much money is addressed to certain initiatives, a list of the scientific advisory boards, so you can really get some insights into what that sponsor is all about. It's really a tremendous tool, and that's available through the libraries. Again, all this stuff, I'm going to go back up, is at go.osu.edu/funding. Additionally, I always talk about our tremendous research databases that are available through the university libraries. There are citation alerts that people probably know about, where you can be notified when something's published in your field. It's a great tool if you're not using it. It works the same way as the funding alerts in a sense, but that's a great way to keep up on what's being published. And at the end of every article, generally, is how the research was sponsored. So you can follow that as a backdoor way to find funding. We subscribe to this research and development grant writing newsletter. This is consistently getting great reviews across campus. We've only been using it for, I guess, about a year. And sorry, hang on, lots of things popping open. The publisher requires us to put it behind a password. So your OSU Internet username will allow you to access it. But it's available through this wiki site. It is a 75, 80-page newsletter each month. I don't expect folks that will read that, but one of the great things about it is they give you a quick table of contents. And typically what they're doing is they're looking out into the future, say 3, 4, 5 months out, of what funding opportunities are going to be due. And they provide guidance on how to craft the narrative for different parts of proposals. It's a team of researchers out of Texas A&M that have published this. It's a separate company. But they're really some good advice and some good guidance on proposal writing and putting things together. Each month they also list all the new funding opportunities that have been posted. So if you're new to this area and looking for funding in all the traditional places, this is perhaps a way to be identified of other ways to look for money. Jan talked about the military. DARPA does some really neat, interesting research projects. So all of these funding opportunities are listed here. When I have the time, I scan through this and often will send different funding opportunities to faculty that I'm currently working with, because I'll see something that really fits. And so the more that I learn about your discipline and what you're looking for, the more I can match you up. So that's how you access that database. This is how to get to our limited submission report. We also have the ability to sign up for feeds if you want to be notified. If your research involves anything to do with high-performance computing or working with the Supercomputer Center, they have their own funding database that is connected to the state of Ohio, and it's called Armstrong. That's another place to look for things. We have a grant writing wiki page, on and on. I'm not going to go through all this stuff here. Has anyone worked with university development in the past? I know Steve has with Huntington Gift, right? But there are our colleagues in corporate and foundation relations are also available to help with matching funding to research projects. And so if you're looking for private industry or perhaps corporate funding, that's another avenue to pursue. So lots to talk about. I can't use up all the time that we have, right? Can I entertain a few questions or anything about any of those tools? Yes.
I do have a question. From someone who is not very experienced with this level of funding support investigation, how do you recommend we best interact with your office? Do we attempt to search ourselves, narrow it down, and then come to you, or seek out you first to get a strategic guidance on how to begin our search based on our discipline?
Well, I would say both are correct. It really depends on where you're at. Sometimes people will send me a proposal or a one-page summary of their research activities. I can create an account for you and then give you access to it. So it'd be your account to own. But I'll set up the keywords that I see or hear based on the narrative that I'm reviewing. So that's one approach. Another approach is to just get in there and try the system out and see if you can find the funding that makes sense. And then if you're feeling like you're not making the progress that you want, you're not getting, then reach out and I'll be happy to. I can also access anyone's account and edit it. So if you find that you're getting things that don't make sense and you're asking me, hey, why am I getting funding announcements from Canada and the UK and all that stuff, we can jump in the system and edit all those things.
And say once you've gotten the grant you want to pursue, the writing of it, is
Yes.
that again a resource we can seek out?
So I'm not really staffed or tasked with those responsibilities, but we do have some of these online tools and resources to direct you to. There are some people across the university. We maintain this page of grant writing resources. There are some people on campus that utilize consultants to put together proposals. Some departments, some colleges, generally that's reserved for very large programmatic grants where it's a strategic decision. I don't know, Steve, are there resources within the regional campuses for support with grant writing or proposal?
We actually have been talking about whether or not we want to bring that to our campus, and Terry has been involved in surveying faculty about the degree to which that would be of help to them. So I think at this point it would be a campus-by-campus decision to do something like that. Terry, I don't know where we are with that right now at this point.
We're on hold.
There you go.
So what I usually said, if you need that kind of support, talk through your department chair and the leadership of the campus, and if it's deemed a strategic proposal, there may be resources available.
Start there.
Yep, and that's a great way to go. Yes?
What about because I have the same situation. Finding funding for me in my view is not a problem.
Yeah.
I have tons of them coming to me every month. But it's finding the time to apply is that would your office or somebody that come today would help me maybe match with somebody else that is on the same area, the same field within the university or within other partnerships that we have that could then you get together and facilitate that writing application process?
We can definitely help in terms of finding collaborators. We have some tools that do that, and partnering you with, like, in other words, maybe perhaps a senior investigator who's been successful with a particular sponsor. We can definitely do that sort of stuff. What we don't have, right, and Jan can correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have a resource or a center that you can go to get narrative support. There are people who will help review, edit, all that kind of stuff. That's available. I don't know, you want to mention the Proposal Center? That's sort of just getting started.
Yeah, it doesn't really exist yet, so I'm not sure that it's something we really want to advertise as being in existence. So it's still more in the up in your head talking phase. But even that is not going to be designed to actually write text.
Okay.
You know, it's
more of a-
it might critique drafts and do that sort of thing, but it's not, and it's only going to be for a very limited set of strategically selected proposals.
Right, it's like strategic. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, that's an example where reaching out and networking with other people that are in your field is really, really, really helpful, because many of them have been through that before. You might be able to help in terms of vetting out, like, which of that huge list of
Right.
things that you're looking at, or, you know, has a better track record in their experience. And also, at least in my experience, you write something and you give it to somebody else, a colleague to read and critique, and through that process you become more experienced.
It's a very, it's the program announcements themselves are a collaborative effort, and the grant proposal should be as well, but that relies on this having some time and all that. One of the tools that is a beta site is KM Data. This comes out of the OCIO's office. So in terms of identifying collaborators, this is sort of the best tool we have today. I expect very soon that Research and View will be able to do some of this kind of stuff, but it has a simple search engine. It's just kmdata.osu.edu. This is also on that wiki site. If I put in a term like autism, the system gives me back faculty members whose scholarship includes publications and/or activity in that area. This tool also works by putting in last names of investigators. First name of investigators, sort of a wacky design right now, but it's evolving. It is a partnership of, so let me pull up a colleague of Jan's that she knows well, so you can see what kind of information. You can see the books that he's written, and there's also hyperlinks, there are chapters, there's also citations and journals. You can really get a sense of someone's scholarship. So this is one tool to identify collaborators. There are other ways. Research and View ultimately will be able to do that. We'll have a public portal, and you'll be able to look in that tool. The challenge is Research and View currently is targeted for pre-tenure faculty, so the faculty that have been around a while, our senior investigators, may or may not be in that yet. So that's something we need to work through. People know about OSU Pro, the prior, So that tool went away in February. We went to Research and View. This is meant to be, I guess, an interim beta site. And it is a partnership with Academic Affairs, Health Science Library. I don't know if our librarians, are you aware of this one, or is it new? Okay. Many departments are feeding data to this. The idea that, so this is something that if you want your scholarship to be in this particular database, you might ask about how to get it loaded in there. What I was told is that everything that was in OSU Pro was imported into this, and the same from Research and View. So anybody before that is not necessarily in here, although I have found some more senior investigators, so I'm not sure how that's happening yet. But it's very new, and it's very much a beta, and they're open to feedback and suggestions. It's really meant to drive some of this collaboration, though. All right, I'm going to stop there because I'm going to end up using all the time up. And let's see, I have 1,000 windows open, so I thought it'd be nice and courteous to shut that down. Who's next on my agenda? Oh, back to Jan. Okay.
Jeff, thank you very
You're very
much.
welcome.
So,
Thanks.